Letters from the Crypt, Chapter 1. The discovery. It was a chilly autumn evening when Sarah Caldwell stumbled upon the old cemetery on the outskirts of her small town. She had heard whispers about it in school tales of restless spirits and ancient curses, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced among the tombstones, and Sarah felt an inexplicable pull to explore. As she stepped through the wrought iron gate, a shiver ran down her spine. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The cemetery was overgrown, weeds clawing at the stones like skeletal fingers. She wandered deeper into the graveyard, her flashlight beam flickering over the weathered epitaphs. Most were illegible, but one caught her eye. "Here lies Jonathan Hale, beloved son, taken too soon." Sarah knelt beside the grave, her heart racing. She felt an odd connection to the name, as if it resonated with something deep within her. As she traced her fingers over the letters carved into the stone, she noticed a small, weathered envelope nestled among the roots of a nearby tree. It was yellowed with age, the edges frayed and tattered. Curiosity gnawed at her. She carefully retrieved the envelope, turning it over in her hands. It bore no return address, only a single word scrawled in faded ink: help. Chapter 2. The first letter back at home. Sarah sat at her desk, the envelope resting before her like a forbidden treasure. She hesitated for a moment, then carefully opened it. Inside was a letter, written in an elegant script that seemed out of place for its time. "To whomever finds this letter," it began, "I write to you from beyond the veil of life and death. My name is Jonathan Hale, and I am trapped within my own grave. I beseech you to listen to my tale, for it is one of sorrow and despair." Her heart raced as she read on. Jonathan spoke of a dark secret hidden within his family, a curse that had plagued them for generations. He described how he had been wrongfully accused of witchcraft and murdered by those he loved most. His spirit could not rest until the truth was revealed. "I fear that my fate will befall another if my story is not told," he wrote. "You must uncover the truth hidden within this cemetery. Beware the shadows that linger here, they are not what they seem." Sarah's mind whirled with questions. Was this some sort of prank? Or was it possible that she had found a genuine plea for help from a long-dead spirit? She felt an overwhelming urge to learn more. Chapter 3. The investigation begins the next day. Sarah returned to the cemetery armed with a notebook and her flashlight. She scoured the area around Jonathan's grave, searching for any clues that might explain his tragic fate. As she dug through the underbrush, she uncovered another envelope, this one sealed tightly with wax. With trembling hands, she broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. This one was different. It was addressed to Jonathan himself. "Dearest Jonathan," it began, "I cannot bear to see you suffer any longer. The truth must come to light, but I fear for your safety. They will stop at nothing to keep our secret buried." Sarah's pulse quickened as she read on. The letter spoke of a hidden journal that contained evidence of Jonathan's innocence. But it was hidden somewhere within the cemetery grounds, a place known only to those who had been sworn to secrecy. Determined to find this journal, Sarah spent hours combing through gravestones and crypts, her flashlight illuminating eerie carvings and symbols etched into the stone. As night fell, she felt an unsettling presence lurking just beyond her vision, a shadow that seemed to follow her every move. Chapter 4. The shadows stir. On her third visit to the cemetery, Sarah noticed something strange. The atmosphere had changed. It felt charged with an energy she couldn't explain. As she approached Jonathan's grave again, she heard a whisper carried on the wind, soft and mournful. "Help me," it seemed to say. She shivered but pressed on, determined to find the journal. Just then, she spotted a crumbling mausoleum at the edge of the cemetery, half hidden by ivy and darkness. It loomed ominously, its door slightly ajar as if inviting her inside. With cautious steps, Sarah entered the mausoleum. The air was stale and cold, and she could barely see anything in the dim light of her flashlight. As she explored the cramped space, she stumbled upon an ornate chest covered in dust and cobwebs. Her heart raced as she opened it, revealing a collection of old letters and journals, some belonging to Jonathan's family members. With trembling hands, she began to sift through them, searching for anything that might shed light on his story. But as she read through page after page of anger and betrayal, a chilling realization washed over her. Jonathan's family had been involved in dark rituals practices meant to harness power from the dead. They had betrayed him not just out of fear, but also greed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside the mausoleum, startling Sarah. She dropped the letters and rushed toward the entrance. As she stepped outside, she felt an icy breeze whip past her, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. Chapter 5. The haunting begins that night. Sarah was plagued by nightmares. Visions of Jonathan's death played out before her eyes in vivid detail. She saw him standing trial before a crowd of furious townsfolk, their faces twisted with hatred as they accused him of witchcraft. She felt his despair as he pleaded for his life, but was met with only scorn. When she awoke in a cold sweat, Sarah knew she couldn't ignore these signs any longer. She needed to confront whatever dark force lingered in the cemetery, the entity that had kept Jonathan trapped for so long. The next day, armed with sage and candles, she returned to the mausoleum. As dusk fell, she set up a small ritual space inside, creating a circle meant to protect her from malevolent spirits. "Jonathan," she called softly into the shadows. "I'm here to help you." Silence enveloped her for a moment before a chill swept through the air. The shadows deepened around her, as if responding to her call. "I know your story," she continued bravely. "I want to help you find peace." Suddenly, a gust of wind slammed against the mausoleum door, rattling it violently. Sarah's heart raced as she felt an overwhelming presence closing in around her, a dark force that seemed intent on silencing her. "Leave this place," a voice boomed from within the shadows, a voice filled with rage and sorrow. "I can't do that," Sarah shouted back defiantly. "You need to let Jonathan go." The shadows twisted and writhed before her like living creatures, forming into shapes that resembled anguished faces that cried out in torment. Sarah felt their pain wash over her like a tidal wave. "Help us," they cried in unison. Chapter 6. The unraveling truth. Determined not to succumb to fear, Sarah pressed on with her ritual despite the chaos around her. She lit candles and began to chant softly under her breath, words meant to honor those lost and seek their forgiveness. As she spoke, the air grew thick with energy, a palpable force that crackled like electricity. The shadows began to retreat slightly, as if drawn back by her words. "Jonathan," she called again, hoping he could hear her above the din. "I believe in you. I believe in your truth." For a moment, everything fell silent. Then, slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a translucent form that flickered like candlelight. It was Jonathan Hale himself, his expression one of anguish mingled with hope. "Why have you come?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I found your letters," Sarah replied urgently. "I want to help you tell your story, to reveal what really happened." Jonathan's eyes widened with gratitude, but also fear. "You must be careful. There are forces at play here that will stop at nothing to keep me imprisoned." Before she could respond, shadows surged forward again, angry wails filling the air as they lunged toward Jonathan's spirit. "No," Sarah shouted instinctively as she stepped between them. "You can't keep him here. He deserves peace." The shadows hesitated for a moment before swirling around her like a storm, a cacophony of voices rising in fury. "Foolish girl," they hissed. "You cannot save him. You will only seal your own fate." But Sarah stood firm, clutching her candles tightly as she summoned all her strength. "I won't let you win. I will uncover the truth." In that moment of defiance, something shifted within the mausoleum, a crackle of energy that surged through Sarah's veins, like fire igniting kindling. She could feel Jonathan's spirit strengthening beside her, a bond forming between them, fueled by shared purpose. Chapter 7. The Reckoning with Renewed Resolve. Sarah began to recite passages from Jonathan's letters, the words resonating through the air, like an incantation meant to bind their fates together. As she spoke, shadows writhed violently around them, yet they could not break through the barrier formed by Sarah's determination and Jonathan's spirit. "Your time is over," Sarah cried out into the darkness. "I will not let you keep him here any longer." In response, a deafening roar erupted from within the shadows, a sound filled with rage and despair that shook the very foundations of the mausoleum. But Sarah pressed on, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed as she poured forth Jonathan's truth, the love he had for his family despite their betrayal, his dreams stolen away by fear, his longing for justice after death. And just as it seemed all hope would be lost amidst swirling chaos, the shadows began to dissipate slowly, their power waning against the light emanating from Sarah's words. "Jonathan," she breathed softly as he stood beside her, his form growing more solid with each passing moment. "You're free." But even as victory seemed within reach, a final shadow lunged forward, a twisted figure cloaked in darkness that emanated malice unlike anything Sarah had ever encountered before. "Foolish child," it screeched with fury as it reached for Jonathan's spirit, its claws poised to drag him back into despair. "No," Sarah shouted defiantly once more, her voice steady even in fear's grip, and raised her candles high above her head as if they were shields against encroaching darkness. In that instant the room erupted into blinding light, a surge of energy that sent waves crashing against every shadow surrounding them until they shattered like glass, scattering into oblivion. Chapter 8. A glimmer of hope. A silence fell upon them. Once more Sarah opened her eyes slowly, the mausoleum now bathed in warm light instead of darkness, the oppressive weight lifting from her shoulders like heavy chains breaking apart. Jonathan stood beside her, his expression transformed from anguish into one filled with gratitude, and perhaps even joy, as he looked toward where his prison once lay. "You did it," he whispered softly, his voice now clear without echoes or shadows tainting its sound. "You freed me." Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as relief flooded over her, a sense of accomplishment mingling with profound sorrow for all those lost along this journey. But there was still one thing left undone. "Your story needs to be told," she said firmly, her heart racing at what lay ahead, but knowing deep down this was only beginning, not just for Jonathan but for all those who suffered beneath cruel fates born from ignorance and betrayal. With renewed purpose sparking within them, both they stepped forward together toward daylight streaming through cracked stones above, ready at last to uncover more than just secrets hidden deep within crypts, but truths buried beneath centuries worth of lies, waiting patiently for someone brave enough to stand against darkness itself. And so began their quest, not merely seeking answers, but forging paths toward healing, forging bonds between worlds separated by death, but united by stories, waiting patiently until someone dared listen closely enough to be continued. Chapter 9. The Unveiling. As Sarah and Jonathan stepped out of the mausoleum, the first rays of dawn broke through the horizon, illuminating the cemetery with a golden light. The air felt lighter, as if the oppressive weight of the shadows had finally lifted. Sarah could sense that this was not just a victory for Jonathan, but for all the souls who had been wronged and silenced. "Where do we start?" Sarah asked, her heart still racing with adrenaline. "How can we make sure your story is heard?" Jonathan smiled softly, his spirit glowing with warmth. "There are records in the town archives, documents that detail my trial and the events leading up to it. We must gather evidence to reveal the truth about my family's actions. Only then can I truly find peace." With a newfound determination, They made their way back to town. As they walked, Sarah felt a connection to Jonathan that transcended time and space, a bond forged through shared pain and purpose. She knew that uncovering the truth would not only free Jonathan, but also serve as a warning to others about the dangers of fear and misunderstanding. Chapter 10. The Archive. The town archive was an old brick building, filled with dusty shelves and forgotten histories. As they entered, Sarah felt a sense of urgency. She led Jonathan to the records room, where stacks of yellowed documents awaited them. "Let's start with the trial records," she suggested, her fingers trembling with anticipation as she sifted through the papers. Jonathan hovered beside her, guiding her toward the right files. Hours passed as they dug deeper into the past, uncovering testimonies from townsfolk who had turned against Jonathan, fearful of what they did not understand. Each document painted a clearer picture of betrayal and injustice, revealing how greed and envy had fueled his family's dark legacy. Finally, they stumbled upon a hidden journal tucked away in a corner, its pages fragile yet filled with Jonathan's family secrets. As Sarah read aloud, she uncovered details of the dark rituals they had performed and the pact they had made with malevolent forces in exchange for power. "This is it," Sarah breathed, her heart racing. "This is the evidence. We need to expose them." Chapter 11. The confrontation. With the journal in hand, Sarah and Jonathan returned to the cemetery that night. They gathered their courage and prepared to confront the dark forces that had kept Jonathan trapped for so long. "Tonight, we will reveal the truth," Sarah declared, lighting candles around Jonathan's grave. "We will summon the spirits of those who were wronged and demand justice." As she began to chant, a gust of wind swept through the cemetery, extinguishing some of the candles. Shadows began to gather once more, swirling ominously around them. "Foolish girl," a familiar voice boomed from within the darkness. "You think you can challenge us? You will pay for your insolence." But Sarah stood firm, her heart steady. "I will not be afraid. Your reign of terror ends tonight." Jonathan joined her side, his spirit shining brightly. "You have taken too much from us. It's time for the truth to come to light." The shadows writhed in fury as Sarah and Jonathan's combined strength pushed back against them. The air crackled with energy as they channeled their determination into a powerful force, illuminating the darkness around them. Chapter 12. The final stand. In a climactic moment, Sarah raised the hidden journal high above her head. "I unveil your secrets. I reveal your lies," she shouted, her voice echoing through the cemetery. The shadows recoiled as if burned by the light emanating from the journal. With each word she spoke, pieces of Jonathan's story came alive, the truth cascading like a waterfall over the darkness that had held them captive for so long. As she recited passages from the journal, Sarah felt Jonathan's spirit growing stronger beside her, his essence merging with hers. As they faced the darkness together, "No more," she cried out defiantly. "We will not be silenced." With one final surge of energy, Sarah and Jonathan unleashed their combined strength, sending a wave of light crashing against the shadows. The darkness shrieked in agony as it began to dissolve, revealing glimpses of lost souls trapped within. "Be free," Jonathan urged them, his voice resonating with compassion. "You are no longer bound by their lies." As the last remnants of darkness faded away, a profound silence enveloped the cemetery, a silence filled with hope and healing. Chapter 13. A new dawn. With dawn breaking over the horizon, Sarah and Jonathan stood together amidst the remnants of their battle, a sense of peace washing over them like a gentle tide. "Thank you," Jonathan whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. "You have given me my freedom." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she looked at him. "You deserve this, Jonathan. Your story will be told, your truth will be honored." As he began to fade into the morning light, Jonathan smiled warmly. "Remember me not for my pain, but for my journey toward redemption. And know that you will never be alone in your fight for justice." With those final words, he vanished into the dawn, leaving behind a lingering warmth that enveloped Sarah like an embrace. Epilogue: the legacy in the weeks that followed. Sarah worked tirelessly to bring Jonathan's story to light. She shared her findings with local historians and organized community events to educate others about the dangers of fear-driven actions and the importance of compassion. The town began to heal as people confronted their past mistakes and sought to make amends. The cemetery transformed into a place of remembrance, a sanctuary where stories were honored rather than buried. Though Jonathan was no longer physically present, his spirit lived on in every heart touched by his tale, a reminder that even in darkness, there is always hope for redemption and healing. And every autumn, when the leaves turned gold and crimson, Sarah would return to his grave, lighting candles in remembrance and whispering words of gratitude for the journey they had shared. For in every letter from beyond the crypt lay a story waiting to be told, a testament to love, loss, and ultimately liberation.